Hey, what's going on, you guys? This is Madman. I'm coming back to you again. This is a long article. This is by abcnewsgo.com, and it was initially published on December the 2nd, but it's a very good thing, especially for people of color, African Americans, blacks, whatever you want to classify yourself as. And the article starts off by saying U.S. lawmakers unveil an anti-slavery Constitution amendment. The article was by Aaron Morrison at the Associated Press. New York. National lawmakers introduced a joint resolution Wednesday aimed at striking language from the U.S. Constitution that enshrines a form of slavery in America's foundational documents. The resolution, spearheaded and supported by Democratic members of the House and Senate, would amend the 13th Amendment's ban on chattel enslavement to expressly prohibit involuntary solitude as a punishment for crime. As rifled, the original amendment has permitted exploitation of labor by convicted felons for over 155 years since the abolishing of slavery. The 13th Amendment continues the process of a white power class gravely mistreating black Americans, creating generations of poverty, the breakup of families, and this wave of mass incarceration that we still wrestle with today, said John Markley of Oregon, told the Associated Press ahead of the resolution's introduction. A House version is led by outgoing Republican William Lacy Clay of St. Louis, who said the amendment seeks to finish the job that President Abraham Lincoln started. It would eliminate the dehumanizing and discriminatory forced labor of prisoners for profit that has been the drive the over-incarcerated of African Americans since the end of the Civil War, Clay said. In the Senate, the resolution has Senators Bernie Sanders of Vermont, Ed Markey of Massachusetts, and Chris Van Hollen of Maryland signed on as co-sponsors. The change to the 13th Amendment will finally fully rid our nation of a form of legalized slavery, Van Hollen said in an email statement. Constitutional amendments are rare and require approval of 2/3 of the House and Senate, as well as ratification by 3/4 of the state's legislature. Should the proposal fail to move out of the committee in the remaining weeks of Congress, Markley still hopes to revive it in the next year. The effort has been endorsed by more than a dozen human rights and social justice organizations, including the Sentencing Project, the Anti-Radcliffe Coalition of Change. It is the past that Congress exercised this language from the U.S. Constitution, which should begin to put an end to the abusive practices derived from it, Laura Pitter, Deputy Director of the U.S. program at Human Rights Watch, which also endorses the amendment. The proposal amendment comes nearly 1 month after voters in Nebraska and Utah approved incentives amending the state's constitution. Their state's constitution, let me be clear on that, to remove language that allows slavery and involuntary servitude as criminal punishments. In 2018, Colorado was one of the first U.S. states to remove such language by ballot measure. Although half of the state's constitutions did not mention human bondage or prison labor as punishment, Just over 20 states still include such clauses in governing documents that date back to the 19th century abolishment of slavery. In Murphy's, Oregon voters in 2002 approved the elimination of the constitutional language that prohibits Black Americans from living in the state unless they were enslaved. He said the movement towards a federal amendment is kind of saying to the world, let's not forget the big piece of injustice that's sitting squarely in the middle of our Constitution. Many Americans will recognize modern-day prison as a chain gang deployed from prison facilities for agricultural and infrastructure work. The prevalence of prison labor has been largely accepted as a means for promoting rehabilitation, teaching trade skills, and reducing idleness among prisoners. But the practice has a much darker history. Following the abolishment of slavery, southern states that lost the backbone, their literal backbone of their economies, began criminalizing formerly enslaved Black men and women for offenses as petty as vagrancy or having unkept children. This allowed legal reenslavement of African Americans who were no longer seen as symptomatic victims of inhuman bondage, said Michelle Goodwin, a constitutional lawyer professor at the University of California. These people became criminals, and it became very difficult for many abolitionists to use the same kind of emotional messaging about the humanity of these individuals, Goodwin said. Today, incarcerated workers, many of them making pennies on a dollar, literally pennies on a dollar, work in plant manufacturing, clothing assembly, furniture, and even battling wildfires across the U.S. Much of it is the benefit of large corporations, governments, and communities where they're historically been unwelcome upon release. Researchers have estimated that a minimum annual value of a prisoner's commodities at $2 billion, derived largely through a system of convict leasings that leaves the workers without the legal protections and benefits that Americans are otherwise entitled to. And while prison work is largely optional for 2.2 million individuals incarcerated in the United States, it is a grave mistake that disassociates their labor from the original intent that the penal system, Goodwin says. Your freedom has been taken away. That's the punishment that society has assigned, she said. The punishment is not that you do slave work. That is unpaid or barely paid labor. Morrison is a member of the AP's Race and Ethnicity team. Follow him on Twitter. Okay? And they have that. So, basically, this is a story that came out. It really didn't get any press. It really didn't get any playtime. It was very little places that was talking about this, and I feel that this is important. All the other stuff is good too, but anybody that has been watched my channel over the past year, I tend to, delve into political stuff and things of that nature. So, I'm happy that it's going to actually be brought up. I'm also happy that a representative from Maryland is actually endorsing this. I'm so glad of that. And the thing about that is 2/3 still have to approve it, and then it has to go through a number of other processes before it can actually be wrote into law. So the thing is, um, just honestly speaking, it was the literal backbone of, the South. They did do that. Without, manual labor, they wouldn't have had the wealth and massed the wealth that they did, the architecture and things of that nature. So that's definitely a thing. They're getting paid cents on a dollar. They even have some inmates helping out with the body disposal. Not so much the body disposal. Forgive me for that. Let me correct myself. For the handling of the COVID patients, the bodies, and they're getting paid like cents on the dollar, like 30 cents, 40 cents, if that, depending on what state um, they're locked up in. So, I mean, it's just a thing. You think that, they still mad that the South lost against the North. So, my whole thing is, I mean, they can bring the bill up, but as far as me having hope for them still fighting over a flag, which is the flag most associated with the South and stuff like that, that really wasn't even a real country, or it wasn't even really a real thing. It was just that, it was a civil war and the North was against the South, and the North won. So, it's hard enough to get them to agree to move or relocate statues of Confederate soldiers, federal, people that fought in the wars. Robert E. Lee, naming one off the top of my head. The Confederate flag is a symbol of the South, something that never was. When it was a thing, it did not stay in commission for very long. If anybody paid attention in history class, and they're still fighting over it to this day. I know that Texas is going to be one of those places, Arizona, where they have prison labor work at. All over the United States, they're going to have issues with that because, if I'm not mistaken, I may be mistaken, my estimate may be off, but it's like, in some states, it's like $40,000 a person. And some jails and prisons are overcrowded. It's a cash cow for them. It's basically, literally, okay, they lost, the South lost, so what we're going to do, as the lady said in the article, we're going to have them work for pennies on the dollar, and we're going to, essentially take away their freedom. When they were sentenced, they wasn't sentenced to, a life of slave work. Again, piggybacking off of what the woman said, it's really sad that we still have to deal with this. But if it is able to get past the House incident and then be ratified, then that would mean that's a step forward. That's a step forward. And, we can branch off from this article to reparations and things of that nature. Last year, I talked about one college, that was, quote unquote, giving reparations, not to the fullest extent. No, it's not 40 acres and a mule. It's more like free scholarships. Okay, paid scholarships. So, you can check that out in my playlist. You can definitely check that out. You can check it out in my videos. So, I would definitely like to hear what the people, you guys, the subscribers, have to say. As always, I am most grateful for the comments, the feedback. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And I will be making an announcement. I'm having something important come up in February, which is not that far away, like a month away. So I will be going live, or I will do a video, either or. I'll probably go live, or do a video. I don't know. I haven't made my mind up yet, but I have an announcement. It's also been the reason why, I haven't been consistent as far as my videos, but all will be explained, I promise, and we can chop it up. To then, you guys.